Hi everyone, welcome to the visual guide for the Binding Coil of Bahamut, Turn 5, where we'll go up against the daunting Twintaniwhat. This is currently the last raid encounter available to players and is your gateway to the new raid content in the upcoming patch 2.2. My name is Miss Tech and I'll be your dungeon guide. The Twintaniwhat encounter has 5 phases and a hardened range of about 13 minutes. To say that this is a long fight is the understatement of the century, and the number one killer you'll face is Raider's fatigue. Remember to keep your eyes open and your friends focused, and you'll have her down in no time. We begin by pulling and separating Twintaniwhat and the adds. While I am doing off-tanky things, I am actually spec'd and geared for as much damage output as possible. Since the off-tank role is quite minimal on this fight, you'll often find groups single-tanking in an attempt to maximize overall raid damage. You'll notice that once the encounter begins, the outer perimeter will turn into a fiery death trap. Any player that steps into the purple lines will instantly die, so watch your toes. Throughout the fight, Twintaniwhat will cast Death Sentence, a massive cast on the tank that will do a crazy amount of damage and places a healing debuff on him. If you are running with 2 tanks, you can swap tanks during the Death Sentence cast so that the debuff lands on the off tank. However, it is quite possible to survive with a single tank and some cooldowns, which is what you'll be seeing in this video. Twintaniwhat also has a pretty spicy cleave called PLUMMET, so all players need to be wary of their positioning throughout the encounter. In this first phase, it's important that the raid spreads out. The Scourge adds will target a random player with Liquid Hell, a large ground AoE that should be avoided as much as possible. There is no telegraph, so keep an eye out. Once all 3 adds are down, all players will switch to Twintaniwhat. The main tank positions Twintaniwhat in a very specific spot. At the beginning of Phase 2, Twintaniwhat will drop a Neuralink directly beneath her, and we're trying to place these Neuralinks at specific points. The rest of the raid group splits up into the respective groups in preparation for Phase 2. We have 4 people and pets per group to handle the 2 main mechanics in Phase 2, Conflag and Fireball. Since I'm the odd man out and our main tank can handle the entire phase on his own, I hang out in the middle of the 2 groups and try not to fall asleep. At 85%, Twintaniwhat will drop her first Neuralink and Phase 2 will officially begin. The main tank will back up towards the hill to position her for the next Neuralink, while the rest of the raid maintains their position until the first Fireball comes out. The Fireball is a massive attack that will split its damage among the players it hits. The more players hit by it, the less damage they'll sustain. But there's a catch. For every player hit by the Fireball, Twintaniwhat will gain a buff that will either increase or decrease the amount of time before each conflagration blows up. The more players hit, the less time before conflag blows up, and vice versa. Let's look at conflagration. The player targeted with conflag will get a massive circle above their head. As soon as that goes out, they must immediately run inside Twintaniwhat's hitbox. After a short time, the conflag will trap them in a fiery prison that must be destroyed before it explodes, killing the player inside. Once the conflag is up, all players must immediately switch to it. With our groups of 4, each fireball grants us about 15 seconds to deal with the conflag, so you really have to pump up DPS. Conflag and fireball will alternate throughout this phase. With the timing, every other active conflag will be up when a fireball is coming down. Any player that is affected with fireball during an active conflag needs to immediately run into the conflag until they're trapped. The conflag will absorb the damage of the fireball, granting a few extra seconds to destroy it. A tip for tanks and healers. If both healers are affected by conflag, it's useful for the main tank to run into the conflag as well. The damage of Death Sentence and Plummet can be absorbed by the conflag. This phase continues until 55%. To keep up with the enrage timer, you will see 4 total conflags before pushing her into the 3rd phase. Let's do a quick recap before entering Phase 3. Players will split up into the respective groups once the adds are down. If you get targeted by Fireball, you'll get an orange triangle above your head and must huddle with your group to avoid death. If you get a blue circle above your head, you must run beneath Twintaniwhat before you get trapped. All players need to switch to the conflag as soon as it's up, releasing you before it explodes. If you get a Fireball while the conflag is up, you must run into the conflag to avoid death. You'll go through 4 of these conflags before Phase 3. If you find yourself nearing the 55% mark before the 4th conflag has gone out, it's often easier to slow DPS and wait for that last conflag before pushing her in. Since positioning is very important for Phase 3, it's better to go in with control than scrambling to try to get someone out of a conflag and eating dive bombs to the face. At 55%, Twintaniwhat will drop a 2nd Neuralink below her and fly up. As soon as you see that Neuralink dropping, all players need to move into position for the dive bombs. While dive bombs can be handled in any way necessary, this pit method is by far the easiest. All players must be stacked in the dip of the land right next to the outer perimeter. Dive bombs will target one player, and moments later, Twintania will swoop in, doing massive damage and punting back anyone she hits. Again, this phase is all about control. With the group stacked in this dip, it will force Twintania's dive bomb to land in the same place every time, allowing for some easy dodging. The person targeted by dive bomb will gain a large green circle above their heads. As soon as that circle pops up, the group needs to run up the hill out of the way of the dive bomb, and then immediately run back into position. You only have about 6 seconds in between each dive bomb to reposition, so take care not to run too far up the hill. Twintania will dive bomb 3 times before taking a break. After 3 dive bombs, a set of adds will spawn on this side of the map. The main tank will grab Asclepius, while the off-tank grabs the smaller 2. From the spawn of these adds, you'll have about 45 seconds before Twintania does another 3 dive bombs. These adds must be killed before Twintania enters phase 4. I would consider this to be the hardest part of the fight, and how you handle this will depend on your own raid group. Let's talk a little bit about these adds. The smaller snakes will detonate and place a damage debuff on anyone within range when they die, including the bigger snake. This debuff is the key to destroying Asclepius before Twintania comes back down from phase 4. Our group prefers to stagger the debuff. We mark up one of the smaller snakes and kill it as soon as possible. Melee and tanks should try to avoid the debuffed explosions as much as they can. The second snake will be DPS'd until about 20%, at which point DPS will switch back to Asclepius. We will kill this second snake once the debuff on Asclepius has about 10 seconds left. With our timing, we know that once we kill that first snake, we need to reposition for dive bombs in that same pit. Once you see the green circle, run up to dodge the dive bomb. After the second dive bomb, it's time to kill the second snake, refreshing the debuff on Asclepius. At this point, the off-tank will run to the other side of a room to pick up the next set of adds that will spawn. After the third and final dive bomb, the main tank and the rest of the raid will move to the center of the room. The off-tank will bring the 2 new adds to the center, and will get a mage limit break to damage them as much as possible. Here we kill the 2 small snakes as fast as we can to get a 4 stack of the debuff on Asclepius. Again, tanks and melee should avoid the debuff explosions as much as possible. Once all adds are down, you need to pump out enough DPS to destroy Asclepius before Twintania returns. I would suggest that tanks and melee hang out near the first Neuralink, while the rest of the group hangs out around the second one. Once Twintania reappears, she'll use a massive ultimate blast that will kill anyone not standing in a Neuralink. As soon as you see her reappear, all raid members should stand in the second Neuralink, while the main tank stands in the first one away from the group. Take special care with anyone that has more than 1 stack of the debuff. Even in Neuralink, the blast can kill you if your stacks are too high going into this phase, so pop cooldowns is necessary. As soon as Twintania reappears, it's important that everyone focuses her. In phase 4, she will cast Twisters, an ability that will one-hit kill anyone not paying attention to her cast bar. Once she reappears, she will resume her death sentence plummet rotation on the main tank. She'll be pulled away from the first 2 Neuralinks in the middle of the room. The rest of the raid needs to spread out around the room and assign spots in preparation for Twisters and Dreadknights. Twintania will cast Twister, an ability that will place a tiny twister underneath 3 people at the end of her cast. The best way to handle this is to start moving as soon as you see that cast bar. Keep moving until she stops casting. You will either poop out a twister or not. Either way, you can't take the risk of getting killed by one, so keep moving until you see that her cast is finished. Be careful not to run into other players during this cast. Once the cast is over, get back on Twintania, but keep an eye out for the Dreadknight that's about to spawn. A Dreadknight will spawn in the middle of the room that will fixate and chain a random player. If the Dreadknight reaches his victim, they will die instantly, so it's important to maintain a heavy and stun rotation on him. Right before a Dreadknight spawns, it's important that all players move away from the middle of the room as much as possible. We don't want a melee getting caught in his chain and killed instantly. Twisters will continue to cast throughout this phase, even when a Dreadknight is up. Everyone needs to keep an eye out on their focus target and move when appropriate. Continue dodging Twisters and destroying Dreadknights until about 30%. At this point, Twintania will drop her last Neuralink and enter phase 5. The tank needs to keep Twintania in the same position she drops this last Neuralink. The off-tank will be standing inside of this Neuralink for the rest of the phase to handle an ability called Hatch. The rest of the raid needs to maintain their spread to avoid liquid hell casts. This is the same mechanic as in the first phase, only this time Twintania will drop 5 liquid hells on a player she targets. This is similar to eruptions from the Ifrit encounters. If you get targeted by liquid hell, run to the outside and keep running until all 5 hells are down. Do your best to avoid other players. I would recommend not sprinting, as you want to minimize the area that you're dumping liquid hell in. Twintania will also cast Hatch, an ability that targets a specific player and spawns an orb directly underneath her. This orb will fly towards the targeted player and will kill them if they are not standing in a Neuralink at the time. To completely negate this ability, we have the off-tank standing in the Neuralink the entire phase and eating the hatches as they plop out. The only time targeted hatch players need to be careful to move is if the off-tank gets liquid hell. The off-tank will have to run out of the liquid hell and won't be available to eat hatches in a Neuralink. If you're targeted by hatch at this point, take care to be in a Neuralink before the ball slaps you in the face. The main tank's utmost priority is to maintain Twintania's position on top of this last Neuralink. If the main tank is targeted by Neuralink, it's important to cool down through all 5 liquid hells so they all drop neatly on top of one another before moving out of that damage. Liquid hell and hatch casts will continue until Twintania is killed. Congratulations on that sexy new weapon. If you have any questions or comments, let me know. As always, thanks for watching. See you all in 2.2.